What's going on, guys? BASSFZz here. So, in today's video, what I'm going to do is tackle a topic I hadn't chatted about in quite some time, and a topic that a lot of people are much more knowledgeable than I am on. So, in this topic, in this video, there's a factor that I'm going to gloss over that a lot of people seem to apparently not grasp or understand about the nature of men, males. So obviously on the title, I got a couple of requests to talk about my opinion on domestic violence, and one person asked for me to talk about a lack of shelters for men when it comes to domestic violence, and so I figured, these two are pretty much same broad topics, so I will just hit two birds with one stone. So let's talk about domestic violence, and there's lots of things that we already know. At least I will assume that we already know. For starters, we can talk about the way domestic violence is viewed in our culture, and that it's oftentimes viewed as a crime that men commit against women, when in fact, a lot of domestic violence is actually reciprocal. According to Erin Peasy, the woman who created the first domestic violence shelter, I think in I forgot where, but I know it's somewhere in Europe. When she actually received death threats. I think a lot of people know this, especially if you've seen the Man Woman's Myths videos. She received lots of death threats because she said, according to her research, she actually found that a lot of domestic violence was actually reciprocal. I think she said about 50% was men and women hitting each other. So it isn't just that the cases are not simply men abusing women. It's men and women fighting each other, and it would stand to reason that that be the case, that a lot of people, they just aren't crazy, and they're just men beating women. No. Then you also have cases that's largely ignored, and there where you have women who abuse men, and that's a topic that is very glossed over and sometimes even made fun of and almost dismissed a lot of the time by a lot of people, of course, by feminists and even by, for example, some libertarians. Later in the video, or in just a second, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean when I say a lot of times it's kind of dismissed and glossed over. Because I think her name is, I know her username is Brave the World, Julia Toronsky, I believe her name is pronounced. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But even she has this odd idea of women on men domestic violent cases. A lot of people don't really take into account. I think this is one very important thing about this topic, is how a lot of men, when they're caught in these situations with the women that they're dating, it's very obvious. This blatant obvious fact. I'm sorry I have to say this, but men are bigger, stronger, and faster than women. It's no real contest in the physical department. Even in terms of dexterity, endurance, men, it's not a fair contest. Even in height, most men are vastly taller than most women, especially because women like dating men who are bigger than them. And so in these relationships, it's usually, not always, but usually like a smaller woman with a bigger man. And so because of primary aggressor laws here in America, and I believe in Canada too, I could be wrong, the man is oftentimes always arrested whenever domestic violence gets called in because he's bigger and stronger. And there have been lots of cases where women have, straight lied about things happen. I remember I just saw on Dr. Phil, Dr. Phil had to wrestle with this one woman to admit that she lied about her husband, attacking her, about punching her in the face, and that man spent 10 months in jail based on a complete fabrication. So this is real. This really does happen to lots of men due to those primary aggressor laws. Like, I think the women, the Violence Against Women Act, although it's gender neutral language, just the consequences of nature, men are bigger and stronger. So even if the man is the one being beaten by a woman, if he just reciprocates or he pushes her back or he does anything, again, he's bigger than she is. And a lot of people, what they don't take into account is two things. One, women are a lot more likely to use weaponry because, contrary to popular belief, women are not stupid and they're just as capable of doing terrible things like men are. And so in order to overcome that very obvious disadvantage, they're not usually using their fists. They're not usually attacking them. Only like really unintelligent women will strike men in the face with their fists. And I made a whole video about how dumb that is. So a lot of women in these cases they're using like pots and pans. Sometimes they'll take knives and they'll stab men. Some women have even gone as far. I remember, I think a lot of people remember this story. In case you don't know, viewer, that I don't know if it was The View or if it was another talk show where these ladies were reporting when this woman drugged her husband, knocked him out, waited for him to wake up, and snipped off his penis. They threw it into the garbage disposal, and just grounded it up, and they were sitting there laughing about what happened to this man. Women are conniving creatures, so they overcome, the physical weakness with cunning. And they'll either poison the man slowly and kill him that way, or make him sick that way, or they'll, like I said, just example, this one woman. I don't know how often it is that women cut off men's penises. I hope it's not very often, but that's an extreme case of, again, a woman. She's not using her physical strength to beat the man. She's being cunning about it, So a lot of people don't take that into account because they get stuck on the fact. They get stuck on this mental image of just this big bulky guy, slapping the shit out of his wife, or being his girlfriend. And it's possible that a huge portion of that is because of the feminist movement making a gigantic push to demonize men so much. If not just make men look outright evil, there's no argument here. And you can try to argue with me, you will not win. There's a gigantic demonization of men and masculinity going on whenever feminists talk about it. And if a feminist doesn't outright hate men, you can bet your bottom dollar they're making being a man look bad. If not downright evil and sinister, they're making him look like a shitty person. No argument. None. Try me. Fucking try me, okay? So when you have all this different propaganda, it makes sense that a lot of people will view the crime as men attacking women, and that's only part of the case. The more nuanced factor of domestic violence is it's people hurting people, and you have some men beating on some smaller women, and you have women attacking men with knives and weapons, and then you have women who will be more cunning about it, like I said, and then you have other women who will, like I said, use weapons and poison men and, all of that terrible things that they do. So another factor that people seem to not take into account is the fact that a lot of men do not have a desire to hurt the women that they're with. It's true. Men are bigger and stronger than women are. Okay, but these women, they aren't putting their hands on men because they think they can win. They're doing it because they don't think the man's gonna hit them back. That's why they're doing it. They're not stupid. They might be foolish, because I would never walk up to a bear and smack it upside the head. You know what I mean? So it's not a smart thing to do. It's very foolish. But these women think the man's not gonna hit them back. That's why they're doing it. And a lot of people aren't taking into account that these men, they don't want to hurt their wives or their girlfriends. They don't want to do this, and that's why they get caught in these situations. Because they love these women. They feel like they're supposed to protect her. So how are they going to be the ones to put their hands on this woman they're supposed to protect? They don't want to hurt these women. And that's before we factor in, like I said, the primary aggressor laws and the Violence Against Women Act and all that. So that's a huge factor that a lot of people gloss over, and a lot of people don't touch that fact that men do not want to hurt women in general. Again, of course, like I said, are there rapists? Yeah. Are there men who do crazy mean shit? Yes. Yeah, they exist. Yeah, why do I even need to bring that up? Of course, I'm not saying that they don't exist. That's foolishness. What I'm saying is, in a lot of these cases, men, they don't want to hurt the women that they're with, especially if they spend a whole bunch of time with them and everything's great, and then something happens and the woman changes. It's the same thing what happens with women and men. See, the thing about domestic violence is it's a very complicated subject matter. It's not as simple as just the people are scared. These people can sometimes get psychologically addicted to these things, or they can get messed up, because some people end up in relationships with people who have personality disorders, like, for example, borderlines and narcissists. They get caught up in relationships with these type of people, and it fucks up their entire mindset. They're not even thinking straight. Sometimes it's not just fear. Sometimes they think that they're in love with this person. They think that the person cares. They're trying to change the person. They're trying to help them. It's not always as simple as I just can't leave or I'm isolated, you know. There's to a lesser extent, this happens a lot more with ladies I've seen, where it's not that they're being physically abused, but, you know, mentally and emotionally. You know, the guy's cheating on them and the guy's calling names and doesn't care about them and all of that. They'll stay. Then, and again, we notice this more with women, but it does happen. I would think, and it's possible that it isn't that it's a lesser thing with men, just that men aren't more willing to admit this, because again, you know, statistic after statistic shows that not a lot of men want to, you know, come out and say that they've been abused by women. You know, it could be embarrassment. I think that might be some of it. It could be the fact that they don't want the woman to get in trouble because they care about them. You know, that's also another thing. You know, a lot of the biological and even the social programming of protecting women is very strong in a lot of men. You know, so I think now is the time. Let's gloss over Julia. I don't know if Julia has a very common sentiment with her and other ladies or even libertarians. I don't know if all libertarians feel this way. I doubt it, but you know, let's gloss over what she said about the topic, and we're going to chat about that when we come back. So, Julia, go ahead and take us away.
Domestic violence. Yes, I do think we need to acknowledge that there are men who are abused by their female spouse physically. But to claim that it happens just as much as it happens to a female is plainly insane.
Now, the first thing is, statistically, that is not true. Roughly about 40 to 45% of what happens in domestic violence cases are definitely women abusing men. So what Julie is about to base this on is why she thinks it's pretty insane to say that is because objectively men are bigger and stronger. But again, she's a perfect example of what I'm saying here, that people do not take into account women using weapons and men don't want to hurt women.
Now, this isn't because I have a female bias. This is because of observable truths about our biology. Women are the physically weaker sex. For an average man to hurt an average woman takes almost no effort. For an average woman to hurt an average man takes a lot of effort. The males have an advantage in a domestic violence situation. There are exceptions. There's women that are large and men that are small. But generally speaking, that is the observable biological truth. So to claim that there's just as much physical domestic violence from women against men is totally bonkers.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a logical fallacy for this, but I do not know it. Her entire premise is very faulty. She's saying that it's absurd to think that women are abusing men because men are bigger and stronger than women. Of course, that does not logically follow suit, not only because of our socialization of men do not hit women, but the facts being women are doing this statistically. Again, 40% of the cases of domestic violence is women hitting men. The vast majority of domestic violence cases are reciprocal of people fighting each other, you know, again, according to Aaron Peasy. So it's, again, there's probably a logical fallacy for this. I don't know it, but her argument just fails because it is contrary to reality.
They quote statistics, and I'm going to read you something that sums up the validity of those statistics. It turns out that these statistics of male abuse, hard and numerical as they are, were gathered by dubious means. When men are identified in police reports as abusers, that is, when women have been sufficiently battered for the police to take an interest, they are frequently questioned later and asked the leading question of whether they were also abused by their partner. Given the opportunity, they are often happy to report that in fact they were, although they seldom report serious or even noticeable injuries. Usually, the quid for which the beating or killing was the quo turns out to have been speech or shoving or slapping. Yet these reports are becoming part of the truth about spousal abuse that is reported in the media. Yes, women slap and push guys around, kicking them, whatever. I've seen the videos. But the guy can easily defend himself by restraining her or leaving unless she's using a weapon. There's no reason to justify punching a woman back. Look at the size of your arm compared to the size of her arm.
And, you know, yeah, again, the whole biology thing. a lot of people are not taking this one thing into consideration, or at least Julia herself is not. Restraining an adult is not as easy as just you're bigger than they are. You can see the cops have such a difficult time restraining men that they themselves are bigger than. You know, even guards in prisons have a very difficult time restraining men that they're twice the size of. Right? Again, you can see this in like the TV show Cops, or you know, whatever. You can find this on YouTube. Right? And even when it comes to like 5-year-old toddlers, you know, it's hard to get a toddler to calm the hell down, let alone a grown-ass woman. You know, it's like, let's say what, 5'4", between 5'7". You know, that's good height for a woman. You know, she's flailing around, she's attacking you, she's beating you. It's not that simple to just grab a flailing individual and not hurt them, because mind you, if she wants to call the police and just straight up lie on your bitch ass, it's a rap like Christmas. Again, the whole thing with Dr. Phil I said earlier in the video. So it's not that simple. You know, it's a little more nuanced and complicated than that. And to be completely honest, you're a grown ass woman. I shouldn't have to fucking restrain you, alright? Because you're an adult. That shouldn't even be a fucking factor, honestly. But, you know, I just expect too much from women now. I'm sexist that way.
Nobody should be hitting anybody else. If a man is hit and he doesn't overreachingly hit the woman back, yeah, she should be charged for abuse. There's a discrepancy there. But to claim that just as many men are battered by women as women battered by men sets a pretty low bar for what battering means.
That's a perfect example of what I'm referring to when I say it's pretty much dismissed. No consideration for the weaponry and the nature of man. You know, men not wanting to hurt women.
Why don't you guys focus on battling things that women are actually doing to men, like severe psychological abuse? Yeah, I think in relationships, women are pretty good at that and are just as abusive as men psychologically.
You know, honestly, I would not say women are just as abusive as men are when it comes to psychological abuse. I would say they're more so abusive, but that's a whole video unto itself. So, again, she's a great example of this. I don't know how many people agree with her. Her video got a lot of downvotes. But in terms of mainstream society, I have seen this be a common sentiment when it comes to men in their domestic violence in the cases that happen with them. You know, so I guess the last thing I can gloss over is the lack of male shelters. I don't really know what else to say about this topic other than it's bullshit. And it's very unfortunate the fact that men's rights activists and just, you know, regular men have to fight for funding to get these shelters to help these men out. You know, lots of things that men do are seen as, to put it bluntly, as a weakness, you know, without glossing over, you know, like the dating realm and game and all of that, you know, even being a nice guy is considered a weakness to some people, you know, so just glossing over there, that's a whole topic unto itself. But, you know, weakness in a lot of men is not respected a lot in our society, and so whenever a man looks like a victim or even attempts to sound like a victim, i.e. what happens with MRAs, and that's another topic that can deserve its own dissertation as well, that even sounding like a victim, you know, makes them look bad, and they get lots of insults for it. I think that might be part of why a lot of people do not put in the funding or care about domestic violence shelters for men, because it makes them look weak, and a lot of people aren't big fans of weak or useless men in our society. And again, that's a huge topic to really get into and talk about. I think that's only part of why. Because there certainly is a push, I know, from MRAs, but MRAs don't really have a lot of mainstream power to really push for a lot of things. And it sucks, certainly. But as far as talking about the lack of male shelters, I don't really know a lot to really delve into the topic as to why that is. I just know, I personally think it's trash. It's really stupid. I think it's bullshit. You know, I outside of people don't like men looking like victims, I don't understand why no one would want to help fund that. And when I say no one, I'm being hyperbolic, of course. MRAs and when I say no one, I mean like big foundations who help create shelters for women. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, that's the topic. Again, there are people who know a lot more than I do. People who've studied this thing, lots of books that you can go into. This video is kind of more something to gloss over it generally, I guess more or less to get you started on doing some more research and looking more into the topic. In fact, people who comment on this video will probably know a lot more than me, especially about why there's a lack of male shelters. But like I said, I am glad people requested this. This is a topic that needs to be discussed. I think maybe in the future I can talk more about a couple of stories of my own friends who had to suffer cases like these, if they become relevant. But I think this video is pretty much wrapped up. So I hope you guys got something out of today's video. I hope you guys do your own research. And more importantly than that, man, I certainly hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And if you did, man, go ahead and click that like button. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, have a great day. I will see you cool cats soon. Adios.